It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, I'm Gary Shorman, and you're watching The Forum on Eagle TV. Good to have you along with us as our Forum program is brought to you by Hayes Med. We have a guest that is sort of a very familiar face, not only being on the city commission here in town, but a former state representative in the same district. Decided again to run for the state representative position, the 111th district, and was successful in the past election. So, Eber, you're going to be heading back to Topeka.
I'll be doing that shortly. They've got your leadership elections take place on December 5th, and there's an orientation program the following day. I don't know if I need to go to that. I used to help do that program, so the 5th will be kind of a interesting day at the Capitol as both the Republican and Democrat caucus will elect their leadership for the next 2 years.
Well, when you look at that, you were the minority whip.
That's correct.
When you left. And does that seat automatically come back, or do you have to work your way back up the ladder to get to that?
Well, there's a really good person, at least in my caucus, that's running for re-election to that position. And frankly, I just need to get back into Topeka and not really worry about the leadership portion of things down there. I'm quite confident in the person that's going to, I hopefully will assume that role again. He's running for re-election to it, so I don't have any plans of pursuing that.
Well, let's take a look at the election process itself, because you were running against Sue Boldra. What did you think about the whole campaign and the whole election? Were you surprised at how, I guess, competitive it got?
Well, I don't think, I was surprised at that so much. I think probably my takeaway that I've been telling everybody is that as I was going door to door, and we did do extensive door to door, I had some really good volunteers helping me with that effort. And it seemed to me over the years, having done that kind of activity, that this time around, people seemed to be really cognizant of what was going on in Topeka. As I told a lot of people that asked about the door-to-door, I said, people are paying attention. Many of them, I think, were quite aware that things are kind of awry in Topeka, and they are, tying the governor to that because of his plan from 2012 that hasn't worked out the way that he wanted it to. And of course, anybody that supported that effort, I think, was kind of in trouble as well. And we saw that right at the very beginning with the primary elections, especially in the Republican caucus, where quite a few of the Republican senators that have been very supportive of the governor's tax plan were not able to hold their seats, and so that obviously carried over into the House races, or into the general election as well, and then noticeably in the House races. Overall,
it wasn't a good year to be an incumbent.
Not if you have been, really supportive of the governor's tax plan, the road to progress, or whatever. I can't think of the different names it had, but the fact of the matter is, it's just pretty obvious that it hasn't worked out very well. And it was probably, I guess to a certain degree, ill-conceived, but at the same time there's some things that didn't come out of it that were intended, such as the job creation and also the various companies and businesses that took advantage of the LLC, and really there was no job creation tied to that. Should have been some caveats in place. I was in the legislature at the time and voted against it because it just seemed too open-ended, and as it turned out, I was right with my assumption, and it really wasn't my ingenuity that figured that out. A lot of the financial experts and people in legislative research pretty much laid out what was going to be the result, and even the number of people that signed up for the LLC loophole situation, I don't even think some of the experts foresaw that.
Well, when you look at what happened, and obviously tied to our governor to some extent, is there a way to fix that? Because talk about it being a bad year for an incumbent. You kind of are an incumbent because you were there once before when this whole thing got started. What can you do differently now after being away from it for a few years? Looking back, what will you do different to maybe change that?
Well, first of all, that's going to have to be addressed at some point. I think the governor needs to take a lead role on that and really, step forward and admit that going forward is not really an option, because it just hasn't worked out, and we're getting further and further into debt. We're already looking at the deficit we're going to have this year, and then that even increases, almost doubles for next year. But all during the campaign, I talked about utilizing, I guess you could call it, some of the tools we have available right now that are kind of a step forward in trying to at least increase the cash flow in our state. We have a comprehensive highway plan, also known as T-Works, that was actually passed, approved, and funded when I was still in the legislature. And what's transpired, instead of going out and doing those projects, which is going to result in a huge amount of job creation, as well as the infusion of money into those local communities that are nearby any of those projects, the governor has opted to borrow money from that fund in the tune of billions of dollars, and to kind of quiet or suppress a issue somewhere that's not going to go away. You're just quieting it for a while. And I think that the best thing to do would be to implement, and it was just announced that they were going to actually not do 24 of the highway projects. And right now we've got, our job growth is just stagnant, and it seems to me that one way to increase that is to actually put people to work, and that highway program we have would do just that. And then the big issue out there is the Medicaid expansion, which would be almost like a economic development boon to our state, because we've already passed up or lost out, I guess you could say, on about $1.4 billion, and subsequently by not, the governor not signing up for that program, which we would have been way ahead of the game had the governor listened to Sandy Prager, the former insurance commissioner, who already had our insurance exchanges set up and everything for the Affordable Health Care Act. And it just, we've just passed up money that actually belongs to us because it's your federal income tax dollars that have been paid in. And so if that were to be implemented and move forward on that, that would just be a boon to our state budget.
So do you think the governor is sitting there going, I'm in trouble now, Eber Phelps is coming back to Topeka?
I don't think he's shaking in his boots, but collectively there's a number of people on both sides of the aisle, I think, that are going to go into this session with the attitude of, let's not let things get any worse than what they are. Because even if we roll back the 2012 tax bill, that's months and months away before seeing any kind of a revenue from that. But in the meantime, we can try to change the course or the direction that we're moving in, and put our emphasis back on, public education, taking care of our elderly and our disabled, as well as our infrastructure. The president-elect announced, I think he was a little over aggressive with his plans for infrastructure projects in the United States, but he was talking about trillions and trillions of dollars to repair infrastructure, which includes highways and airports and all kinds of things that is obviously going to put a lot of people to work. And that's going to enhance our technical education programs and also our tax base.
So you see actually teaming up with both sides of the aisle, teaming up together to say we've got to fix the problem.
Oh, it's imperative. Before we went on air, I was talking about my great friend, the late Dan Johnson, and I look back when I first entered the legislature in 1997. That was just the way we went about things. You got out of your insurance committee, and 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats went to somebody's office and worked on bill briefs. And Dan Johnson and I, being of different parties, drove up and down the highway constantly talking about important issues to this area, such as Hayes Medical Center, Fort Hays State University, our agriculture industry, as well as the oil industry. And it really was a bipartisan effort all the way around. And when my last 2 years that I was there was years 2011 and 2012, that was really absent, and it was very noticeable and very discouraging. And it was almost like a kind of a replica of what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I think in the state of Kansas here, we're a little better than that. And I believe that there's with the mix of new Democrats that are coming in the legislature, a lot of the more moderate thinking Republicans. I think there's going to be a great opportunity for some collaboration there to really look at, let's get some things done here, and let's not worry about special interests. Let's worry about getting some people back to work and getting some revenue going through our state.
Well, you talk about revenue, you talk back to work, you talk back to schools. We're going to kind of put those in priorities. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and talk about those in general, maybe how people can contact you going forward. Our guest is Eber Phelps, just recently re-elected to position of representative for the 111th District. Back with more after this.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.
The most exciting yards in football. It's NFL Red Zone from NFL Network. Get every touchdown from every game, every Sunday afternoon. And football doesn't stop on NFL Network. It goes all week.
We're covering it like crazy.
Get NFL Red Zone from NFL Network today.
Add NFL Red Zone so you can watch all the game-defining yards in football. Call us at 877-61-EAGLE today.
Welcome back to the second half of our Forum program here on Eagle TV. The Forum's brought to you by Hayes Med. If you have any questions, ideas, solutions to problems in Topeka, we'll both take those, but you can send them to me at gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also go online to Facebook. Do you have a Facebook page?
I do.
You have a Facebook page. You can go online and give us your suggestions there as well. Our Eagle Facebook page for Eagle TV is ECTV Forum. Go there, look, sign up, friend us, and send us your suggestions. Again, our guest is Eber Phelps, who newly re-elected. First election was in '97. And you were
96, and then my first session was 97.
97, and then you took a break.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, sort of a break. I think I immediately went back on the city commission to finish out a term. So
now you're doing Thursday night city. Are you going to miss those city commission meetings?
I've been asked that many times, and the fact of the matter is yes. And I look back even a number of years back when I left the commission, I really missed it for the simple fact that it seems to me on the local level you have you have no choice but to have a collaborative effort. And I've been real fortunate to serve with some really fine people here on the City Commission, where I think the goal of everybody was to do things that made our community better, and there was no hidden agendas or anything like that. So this group that I've been serving with, I serve with four really fine citizens here in Hayes, and I'm going to miss that collaboration where we go in and literally get it done and do the best that we think can possibly be done for the community. A few things are controversial, but for the most part, there's a genuine effort to do the right thing.
Let's look at the big picture. Across our country, it was sort of a tsunami of change, people voting just to have a change.
Absolutely.
Does some of that kind of trickle into Kansas politics as well?
Well, I think so.
Kansas is mostly a red state right from the start. It's all a lot of red. You knew where it was going to lean right from the start. So, but can change really happen in that environment?
Well, I would say one has to be optimistic, but I would say at this point in time, yes, because you don't know if you've bottomed out, financially as a state as far as our revenues, or if we're still heading down. But somebody needs to get down there and put the brakes on. And as you talk about voting for change, as I mentioned, we saw a big change in the primary elections, especially on the Senate side, where quite a few members of the Senate were replaced. Obviously, people didn't like what they were doing. And also, when we got to the House races, the House Democrats picked up 12 seats. Nationally, that was kind of a real shock, percentage-wise, to pick up that kind of a number. And then we're joined by quite a few new moderate Republicans as well that just aren't going to be so conservative as far as what they place priorities on. And myself, I look at our constitutional duties that we have here in the state of Kansas. One of those is to provide an adequate education for every child in Kansas, of which we have about 485,000 students in our public education system. So constitutionally, we have a job to do there. So when you say somebody might ask me what's the most important issue, obviously that is constitutionally the most important issue, but you can't do anything there unless you shore up things with our budget. So it's kind of a twofold thing there as far as what the priorities are. And then there's just a whole list of things that go with that I mentioned before. We have elderly retirees that are on waiting lists for in-home health care services, and to me that's, I guess for lack of better words, unacceptable. And we have to shore up the budget in quick order. I don't know if there's anything that's going to be a quick infusion of money. Obviously those things I mentioned earlier need to happen. There's also some things such as securitization of like tobacco funds, which I don't like to think about doing that, but the fact of the matter is that's a lump sum of money. It comes to the state every year, and you've got lending institutions out there might lend big chunks of money providing they get that money for a number of years. So you kind of, I guess sell off your future a little bit there, but we're in kind of a dire need at the moment, so I'm sure that's going to be something that's going to come up in the discussions.
I'm sure there's a short-term and long-term view of some things. That,
oh, absolutely.
As you start looking long-term and how you do things, but some of the programs that have been, the dollars have been taken away to fund the existing state government, that's going to leave some holes in those budgets down the road, whether it be holes in roads because of bad roads or other services that the state offers.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned before, with the highway funding, that money was available. It's sent to the state to do with, with what you want in a sense. But to take that just to quiet a problem that's, not going to go away, you still owe the money. And of course, it's almost a tongue-in-cheek type thing to say that money will ever get paid back, for the highway problems. But I've always said this: if you don't think roads are important, serve in city or county government for a while, and you'll find out just how important roads are. But you also have to realize that our part of the state, especially the southwest part of the state, the highways, that's their lifeline. When you figure the industry that comes out of there and the dependency on good roads. Likewise in northwest Kansas with our agriculture interests, we can't let that. It's almost a pay me now, pay me later scenario. So the more we can do to keep that part of our infrastructure, up to date and in good repair, the better off we're going to be.
What can the viewers do to help the process along? Well,
you mentioned, telling people to contact your show or go on my Facebook or contact me personally, if they have any ideas. Obviously, right now, I think there's a lot of wheels turning right now, people trying to come up with some ideas. We're trying to stop the bleeding, trying to turn things around, get it on a different track than what we've been on. And I'm, like anybody, I welcome any suggestions people might have, because we're sure going to need that. And right now I'm not real positive about the makeup of the legislature, where everybody's thoughts are. I think once we get down into the legislative session, we'll kind of find out the direction. But shoring up the budget is going to be a top priority because everything else is dependent on that.
What's the best way to find you?
With the local paper, and I'm in the phone book. I've got a Facebook, and my mind's been scrambling to figure out what we call my Facebook page.
I bet we can just put your name in, Eber Phelps, and I bet it'll pull up a Facebook page.
And it was quite an active Facebook page during the during the campaign. But feel free to contact me on that. I'll have a new state legislative email address before long, and they'll publish that. And they'll publish, office numbers and so forth in Topeka. But I am in the phone book. On my campaign literature, I had my home phone number. People told me, they said, "I can't believe you would do that." And I said, "Well, I need to have people's input." And one thing I said at the beginning of the program, that people were paying attention, and it's across the board. There's people really concerned about where we're going with our public education funding, infrastructure, how we're taking care of our elderly, and also with our health care programs in our state, not having the Medicaid expansion. So it's across the board. People are concerned, and they're very well aware.
For those people out there that are saying, boy, I don't think we can fix this problem, what do you tell them?
I tell them that they need to be a little bit more supportive of that. But the fact of the matter is, just doing nothing and throwing your hands up in the air in frustration is not an option. I mean, we're Kansans, and we got to look at the legacy that was left here for us by our ancestors and so forth. And they went through some really brutal times. And I know that we've been through a recession, all that. But I still remember talking to my mother and my relatives about the Depression and the Dust Bowl. And those people made it through that. And so that's kind of our makeup here in this state. And hopefully there's, that's still the prevailing attitude. But as you just can't give up, and you just got to keep trying. And I believe that's going to be, my attitude going into the legislature, that there's going to be some incremental solutions that need to take place. And we need to get as many people on board to support those efforts as possible.
Well, Eber, congratulations on winning the election.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
And we'll look forward to seeing you down in Topeka and being a part of that. In the meantime, Facebook page over there, or certainly the many events that you attend. You're at a lot of different events around the community, so any of those, certainly take an active part and participate in the process, because if we don't, everybody loses.
Absolutely.
Eber Phelps, newly re-elected 111th District Congressman, representing us in Topeka. Hope you can speak up and tell your story when you get a chance to do that as well. You're watching the Forum program on Eagle TV. It's brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communications, our community connected.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications, our community connected.